Welcome to Lee County Pod. Your host, Pete Malignick. Our special guest this week, Becca Titus of the United Way. Thank you for joining us. All right. Welcome to Lee County Podcast. Our guest today is Becca Titus from the United Way, and Pete Malignick is our host. So we'll jump right into it. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Jack, and thank you, Becca, for sitting in with us this morning. And with regard to United Way, United Way receives funding through different sources. How much of your funding goes to administrative costs, and how much can be said to be at the client end effective?
Yeah, so with United Way, how we work is we do a campaign. So we're about to kick off our 2025 campaign. We finished out our 2024 campaign in raising, our goal was $1.2 million, because we had 6 new nonprofits come on and ask us for funding. So we knew we would need to raise more because we had more nonprofits needing help. So our nonprofits go through a process of fiduciary financial responsibility. So they have to have an audit or something similar to an audit before they can be a United Way partner. And so once they go through all of that, then we have this big, huge, elaborate thing, which I can explain later, but we do what's called allocations. So each nonprofit asks us for funds, and then we have people from the community sit on this board to look at those nonprofits, make sure their affairs are in order, make sure that they're doing what they say they're going to be doing with their funds, and then an average of that amount is what's given to each nonprofit. So we don't necessarily fund an individual, but we fund nonprofits. So they go through a vetting process of financial responsibility, and so we have 24 that are under our United Way umbrella. Now, all 24 of those are local nonprofits to our own community. So you might have a big one like Boys and Girls Club or CASA, but what we're funding is their local piece and not the big chapters. And so United Way uses those funds to fund United Way, to fund our 211 program that does affect an individual, and then we fund our 24 nonprofits, the ones that ask us for funds that year. Every year is a little bit different. So of our administrative overhead costs, we keep it anywhere between 25 to 28% in operating. And so in funding ourselves, we keep our amounts low, and so as much as we're raising can go out to the actual nonprofits. So just depending on what that amount is, every year we change our goal. We hit 1,087,000 in 2024, so we didn't quite hit our 1.2 million goal, but we're going to stay pushing towards that $1.2 million goal. And how we receive those funds are through individuals. We ask for paycheck pledges. So like at the junior college, we go and do presentations much like this to explain to people where their funds are going. We do the city, we do anywhere that will let us in the door to ask the everyday individual to pledge to United Way. And then we also receive big corporate gifts from like Devon, Urenco, ConocoPhillips. They give us like a one-time check instead of employee pledges. Our goal is the employee pledges. We love our big gifts and we couldn't do it without it. But those one-time, those employee, it's like you are helping your individual nonprofits with that. And so we love connecting people and community in all of that.
Well, that's useful to know. And I imagine the groups that the funds are distributed to are throughout Lee County.
Yes, only. Yes, just Lee County. We fund United Way of Lee County. We fund our 211 program. Our 211 program is if you're needing help with rent or with utilities. If we have a grant, so to speak, we apply for all these different grants: emergency housing and food program. We apply for emergency rental assistance program. And so we ask for those federal funds or state funds for a 2-in-1 program, so the everyday individual can come in, and we have a whole vetting process. Like, they have to have had a job or getting a job. They have to have had paid some themselves in the last 60 days. And so we really try to make sure we're doing due diligence with the money that's given to us, whether it's from the everyday individual or whether it's from those grants from the state or the feds. But they all stay right here in Lee County, yes.
Do you prioritize on which groups get more funds, Becca, or
Okay.
if so, how do you go about that prioritizing?
Okay, so that's our big process that I was telling you. That one is what we call allocations. So every year we start about, well, now we're going to start a little bit earlier because school starts a little bit earlier. We try to get into the in-services with the school so we can do a live presentation. Now during 2020, we did video presentations, and those work sometimes, but you don't get to answer those questions for the individual of like, hey, that's my money, that's my hardworking money, where is it going? And we can answer that in real time when we do those presentations. So we go out to those businesses and we present and tell them much like this. And then we put together, so we do those presentations all the way until like October, November-ish. And then we have like an estimate of what it's going to be. Then we put together members in the community of Tatum, Eunice, Jow, Levington, and Hobbs. And we ask people that are connected or just everyday people to sit on this allocations committee. And so this allocations committee, they then will hear presentations and get tours from every single one of those nonprofits that are asking for United Way funds. They have to turn over their financials, let them see, like, what did you do with United Way's funds last year? What do you plan to do this year? How are you doing it? Because we want to make sure that we're doing a good job with everybody's money. So they give a presentation, and then it's a 2-day process. We look at their financials, we hear what they need the funds for, and then we do it, about 25 people sit on this allocations committee, and then they get to make recommendations of, say, that Y Hobbs, which is the Weekend Hunger Initiative Backpack Program, say they're asking for $100,000, and people get to tell us where they want their money to go to. So if you were doing a paycheck pledge through like NMJC, I can tell you, like, whenever I worked at the JC, I gave to United Way, and I told them I wanted my money to go to 4 different nonprofits. And so I get to self-designate if I choose to, or I can send it to the big lump fund. So that allocations committee of like 20, 25 people, what the money that they're using is what is left over in the lump fund that people didn't already designate and tell us what to do with their money. So you can tell us what to do with it already, or it can go in that main fund. And then that allocations committee of 20, 25 people, they listen to those presentations, they look at the financials, and then they make a decision of, okay, I think, Y Hobbs, they're getting $50,000 from, self-designation. So the other 50, I recommend they get $35,000. I recommend CLASA get $25,000, whatever that looks like. And then Gail our accounting coordinator, has a formula. And so it goes into this formula, and she does, it's an average of that. We kick out the highest, we kick out the lowest, so you can't skew it. And then the average of what those 20, 25 people decided is how much that organization will get, plus what the people told us to do with their own money. Does that make sense?
Sure. It sounds like you really have to have a lot of decisiveness is involved, and to make an informed decision too, all of that. And I'm sure, do you have to at times disappoint people, say, sorry, you just don't have this, we don't have enough for you at this particular
Oh,
time?
yes. We're not ever able. I think the community, there's only a few that ever get 100% funded. And it deals with kids, it deals with food. Like the food insecurity, the kid issue, like our community really feels like those are huge issues here. And so you get to see a difference of like what people want to do with those funds. But yeah, there are some that, they might get 5,000, but for them, they're like, okay, thank you. Nobody counts on like, hey, I'm going to get funded at 100%. And so, and then there's some that they don't have the funds for an audit or an agreed upon procedures that they can do. And so they have to wait out a year until they can get those financials in order. So it's really important to make those financial decisions and so and have that oversight. And then it's community driven and community led. So the people that sit on that allocations committee are people that all live here in Lee County in all pieces. And we change them out. It's not the same people every year. We have some that are vetted and they've done it for, we have one lady that she's probably done it for 15 years and she helps to train the other ones as to what to do. And then we have some that it's their first time to do it. And so it really is important for us to keep rolling those through. So, you get a different look at pieces of the community.
Sure. Jeff, do you have a question? I have a question, but
Go ahead and ask your question.
okay, it seems at present in our community, homelessness is somewhat of a pervasive situation. Do several groups that you allocate funds to work toward trying to alleviate homelessness or solve the problem of homelessness?
So right now, there's a lot going on with different pieces of the community. You have the Guidance Center, you have the City of Hobbs, you have the county, Lee County themselves. United Way is at the table for that. So all of us are going to these different areas and looking at what are they doing to help with the homelessness. I don't think we'll ever solve it because some people are comfortable in that life. Like they might need a shower or they might need a change of clothes, but they don't want to be bound by somebody else telling them what to do. And we have to accept that and understand that as a community and help the best that we can. But some of the stuff is we need to address the issue that makes people comfortable with being homeless. And so those things are on the table right now. They're looking at building a mental and a social behavioral health type of place for this. The county and the city are working together to come up with something like that. We are light years, probably not light years. I would say we're a few years from that happening, but those talks are happening and all of the people are coming together to make that situation better. It's just, what are we going to build? Where are we going to build it? And how are we going to model it? So some of us just got back from Albuquerque from seeing like how they do things there, and they're really, I know we look at Albuquerque and we think, oh my gosh, they're a mess, but they really aren't. They're trying to do things in different ways and they're making headway. It just takes time. And then we just got back from Miami from a conference called Decriminalizing Mental Health. And so in looking at that, it's like, let's address the issue of, and not just throw them in jail. What is the underlying issue? And they have a facility that they're working on, and there's a judge that he's been working on this for the last 20 plus years at getting something going like this. And so there's really great tools out there and it's being looked at, and you do have several of these nonprofits and city governments and county governments that are working together to say, we obviously see that there's more homeless than there ever has been in our area if you're from here, and how do we work on that? How do we fix that? How do we help in that? And so those talks are happening, and I hope to see something by the end of 2025, at least off the ground, built up and getting something. And so it's just going to take us some time, but it is being worked on.
That being said, as an average citizen of Lee County, how would I contribute to that outside of financial resources?
And with the homelessness piece of it, well, one of the things they're looking at doing soon is putting together some community focus groups to hear from the everyday individual as to What are you seeing? How would you like to help? How would you like to be part of that? Because it really is like, we love that we have all these nonprofits and community people be part of the solution, but we need the everyday person to buy into this also and help us, because we can't ever do any of it alone. Like, my tagline is like, we live united and we're all better together. And so we really have to work at that. So watch for those focus groups. We do post a lot on our social media, on our website. The county does also. The city is working on that. And so being part of those community focus groups when they do pop up is so important to everybody to have a voice in this.
So that leads to another question that in general is how does United Way engage with the community at large to express your messaging?
Okay, so we do so many events. Like, we have so many different events that we invite the community to come out to, and our events that we host, like, we just had a flag football tournament that was held at the high school, and the purpose of that flag football tournament was obviously to let the kids and the adults have so much fun and do that, but our mission behind that is the funds that we raise go to what's called the Hobbs Schools Crisis Fund. So we identified a need in 2021, 2022 of kids that were homeless. Now, there is a state federal fund that helps in those situations, but it takes time and there's only so many things they can pay for. They're very restricted. So in working with the superintendent and the man of that program, we said, how can United Way help kids not have to worry about going to school and also having a place to sleep? And so we were able to help this one individual. He was already 18 and he was a senior and he just needed to finish school. He didn't have a good relationship with his family. He was homeless and he was living on the softball fields. And we were trying to help this kid. So through our 211 program, which that's our individual resource program, we were able to find him a place to live that was subsidized housing, but he was able to get a place to live as well as get him a job. We gave him a bicycle so he could get to and from the job. And so we saw a need and we're like, okay, now what can we do to raise funds to meet that need? And so we put on this flag football tournament to, when they identify the counselors of the schools, any of the schools, elementary, middle school, high school, whatever that might look like, if their family is struggling being evicted from their home, or they need some hygiene kits or something like that, the person in charge of the homeless program at the schools, he reaches out to us and says, okay, let's talk this out. I would like to help this family with $300 to Walmart to get them some clothes. These kids don't have any clothes to wear, or they're really suffering. And so that football tournament funds the Hobbs Schools Crisis Fund that helps kids in homeless situations, whether it be directly if they're 18 or with their family as a whole. Because the last thing you want kids to have to worry about is, where are they going to sleep and going to school? They're not going to want to go to school, and you have to be able to connect that. Like, if they're not able to shower, can we help them pay their water bill to get their water turned back on or their gas turned back on? So that fund is a very fluid fund that doesn't have a lot of restrictions to it, because we don't know what the everyday individual is fighting. So we put that message out there, like, for flag football, not only are you coming out to have a good fun time and do it, with United Way, but you're also helping to fund this part of the community that you might not even know. I didn't know there were homeless kids trying to go to school and not have a roof over their head. I had no clue until it was brought to our front door. And then on the 29th, we have a wheelchair basketball tournament coming up at the Core. We're partnering with them. And we are raising funds for the adaptive community. So if you're an adaptive and you want to go to sports, but maybe your family can't afford it, there's a scholarship of sorts that we raise money for to pay for those kids to have a membership at the Core to do adaptive sports that they might not be able to otherwise. And the Maddox Foundation paid for 10 of the sports wheelchairs, and they're housed at the Core, and people can use those if they don't have wheelchairs to play sports with. And so those are some of the things we do. So We create an event, and that event funds a mission of United Way that helps a part of the community. And so as we learn about more, we try to do more. We also have what's called Project Feeding Families. And so on every Friday, we go out to different pieces of the community. We order food from a local restaurant. We pay for that food. And then people just come drive-through style, and we just give them food. Like, you don't have to be needy. You don't have to have a poverty level. You can just be an average Joe and come get this food. It's a community connection as well as food security. This week, tomorrow, we'll be in Jow. So we go to every different town in Lee County and do this the summer months. That was born out of 2020 when the restaurants were closed and the soup kitchen was closed. And we thought, how can we do this? And so we got some grants, and we started buying food from restaurants and having that we did it every Tuesday and Friday, as long as we could during those years, because we had time on our hands.
Right.
And now we're very busy all the time. So, but we still make Project Feeding Families a priority to do it at least in June and July, every Friday, in every single county, in every single town in the county. And so that way we hit ones that you might not think about. Tatum's very small, Jow, Eunice, Levington. And so those missions are still important to us. So we try to keep those pieces, and we're reaching different parts of the community in different ways.
Well, it sounds like you're touching all bases.
We try.
Certainly, and it's interesting to hear these individual stories, where you can get a mental picture, whereas it's harder to see the many, like you mentioned, that I had never myself realized any situations about homelessness of high school kids or possibly grade school
Yes.
kids too. I know there used to be vagrants sleeping in the library overnight years ago at New Mexico Junior College, but that's a long time ago.
And probably that person was homeless, if you think about it. Like, they probably couldn't afford the dorms. They probably didn't know, and they didn't want to identify themselves to say, hey, like, it's very taboo. And so some people don't want to open that up. I will say the NMJC is a huge partner of ours, and now it has the pantry. And so if Derica ever needs help in that program in the pantry, she'll reach out and she'll say, like, hey, do you guys have this? Like, students are just able to come out there and get food if they need it. And if she has some clothing or something, hygiene kits are huge. And so we do a fund. We do a drive for hygiene kits. We do a drive for fans and heaters. We do a drive for coats for wintertime for all kids that we just give away. So in these drives, when we're collecting these things, we're just giving them. Like, they have to come in and fill out a paperwork for data purposes, so we know, like, what that area is. Do we need more hygiene kits? Do we need more fans? Do we need more heaters? They have to show a proof of residency, and then they get one, because you don't want to abuse the system either. And so it's a very fine line, but we try to do the best we can with all the different. Our mission is health, education, and financial freedom. And so those are some of the things that we help. And so those are our tiers of United Way, and we try to plug in different things to those tiers, like the flag football tournament. We're helping financial freedom. We're helping people in a homeless situation. In education, we're also helping in that area. We're part of what's called Reading Under the Lights, and we put on this event, and we work with the Hobbs Grade Level Reading Coalition, and helping kids learn how to read and make reading more fun, and help the parents understand, like, you need to read to your kids also, but let us help you with that. And so we're part of that. So we like to just have a seat at all the different tables so we can keep identifying, because we don't know it all at all whatsoever. We need people to bring it to us and say, like, hey, I identified this, like, would you like to help in this? And we're pretty much always say yes if we can make it work, because we have 3 full-time staff and 2 part-time staff is what we run off of, and then volunteers help us a lot. And our board, we have a board, and it's amazing.
Yeah, it's interesting because Jack has his son-in-law, I think, is a reading teacher in the Hobbs school system.
He's a parapro, so he works with the level D, I think, kids who are on the spectrum and behavioral issues, and he helps shepherd them around through their classes. And he's also one of the coaches at Hazard. So he coaches football also. So he's involved in that, and he gets to see some of the interaction of the United Way interacting with the schools on occasion, especially with the level D kids.
Yes.
So that's the tie-in.
Yes.
That again, we get to see some of the results, and we also get to see some of the shortcomings.
Yes.
And the purpose of the podcast is to connect people in the community and to highlight, different aspects of our community here in Lee County. And so it does point, we want to get individual stories. So you're with the United Way, and you yourself have been a supporter of the United Way. So the question is, why are you passionate about this?
So, when my dad moved here from New Jersey, he met my mom. My mom and dad met in Germany when they were in the military. That one's loud. And so when they moved here, my dad came, he started in the oil field, of course. So the oil field, we all know, has its ups and downs. Whenever I was a little girl, I was probably third grade. In the 80s, my dad got laid off from his job. And so it was one of the down times, which we knew it. And we always lived paycheck to paycheck anyways. That was just part of that. So I remember that growing up. And I remember him being laid off and him being very depressed. Like I didn't identify it, of course, as a third grader, but I remember our church brought us a Thanksgiving basket. And so we didn't have money for Thanksgiving that year. I didn't even know it, but I just remember being so excited that here come these people that are bringing us food for Thanksgiving. How sweet. But I will never forget my dad sitting in his chair. My dad, being from New Jersey, he always just sat there with his shorts on, no shirt, no shoes, no, whatever. And he just sat there and he never got up and he never told him thank you. I remember being embarrassed. As a third grader, I still have this very vivid memory. I didn't understand it then. I was just like, oh, that was rude, Dad. Like, these people are bringing us Thanksgiving. But realizing later as I grew up, it wasn't rude. He was embarrassed and he was ashamed that he couldn't take care of his family. But I remember us being like in the system. I remember us having food stamps. I remember that part of that piece of our life. And I remember people helping us in ways that I didn't understand as a kid. But as an adult, I see it so much differently. So I love our community. I am born and raised here in Hobbs. I've worked in different pieces of the community, and so I get to see it from a different part. And if we can just make one person feel like I felt like a little girl, I felt special as a little girl. My dad didn't. And so we tried to recognize that and still support that. And so that's the piece that I talk about, the homelessness. Like, there are some that choose to be that way. And if we can help and support them the best way and not cause problems to businesses, like, we need to find a way to find that middle, because there might be something in their past or in their mind that they can't be under a roof. And that doesn't make any sense to us. Like, I like my roof, I like my shower, but that doesn't mean that they're less than. And so to be able to balance that, and then I just have such a love for our community because I get to see it from a different lens of so many people. Like with these fires that are right now, we're collecting donations. So many people are collecting donations. We opened up our office yesterday. We were closed, but we opened up our office yesterday to collect donations, and we have this front room that's pretty big. It's full just from one day of collecting things to take to a different community. Like, not even here for us here, but to take to Roswell to say, like, we support you. We know that you're without. And it gives me goosebumps thinking about it. But that wasn't wasn't me that did that. That was like our community coming together. So to be able to do that, and then I have a huge faith, and my faith just says like we're supposed to be the hands and the feet, and we're not supposed to judge, and we're supposed to walk in that love. And so that's just what I try to live, and it's why I feel like I'm placed right here in United Way, because I get to do it from an overarching piece of it instead of just sitting on one board. Now I get to see it from like 24 more places, plus have those connections and partnerships with so many different, and getting the opportunity to do something like this is so cool to me. Like, I don't know, it's just, I love it. But it came from that being a little girl and seeing it from getting something from somebody else, but also knowing that like it was hard. It was hard for my parents. My mom was thankful, but my dad, he was thankful in his own way, but he couldn't show it because he was embarrassed, and that was hard, that he wasn't able to help us as a family because we were in a yuck situation. So
yeah, and so it's very personal.
Very.
For you. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and you had mentioned the current situation. And with the fires in Ruidoso, my understanding is the entire village was evacuated,
Yes.
and most of the people were down in Roswell now.
In Albuquerque, yeah.
In
Some went
Albuquerque,
Albuquerque,
too.
some went Roswell. There were some places opened up for shelter for the right now, but that's a long term. Like, how long are they going to be displaced? Did they lose their entire home? Like, what can we do? So to be able to see our community, and that's just what they brought to United Way. Like, people have been bringing things to all other places also. And so our community, I just love Lee County. I have such a huge passion and love for it, because you get to see it from a very small lens. When you go to a bigger city and a bigger area, I'm sure that stuff still exists, but you don't get to see it and feel it the way I feel like we do here in Lee County.
Yeah, so United Way is pretty involved in meeting this
Yes.
latest catastrophe.
Yes.
That happened to me, it
Yes.
happened very suddenly. I
I
don't know if
agree.
they were expecting it, or
I don't think
but,
so.
You know, fires in the mountains are not uncommon, unfortunately, but I guess United Way has to be prepared to meet all sorts of needs. I'll tell you, having been born and raised in New Jersey myself, it's very different from here. But when I came to Hobbs myself, I was told in my job interview at the junior college that Hobbs, this area, was pretty much disaster-free. I experienced I'd call it a minor flood before the sewage system, the drainage system improved, but knock on wood, and luckily for us, we are, in relation to other places, really
yes.
disaster-free.
Yeah, I think that's a good point too. And so we respond to the disasters from other areas and step up and help in ways that are just amazing to me.
So, again, just the fires in Ruidoso, that's the most immediate. But how does the United Way factor into actually disaster planning or mitigation or avoidance? Is there anything on the table about that, or is it just sort of fly by the seat of your pants?
Oh my gosh, we fly by the seat of our pants a lot, and so that's funny that you say that, because sometimes I have a calendar that I keep, and I keep it very like OCD-ish, like I need to know where I need to be at all times. And sometimes our day, like yesterday, we were supposed to be off. It was a federal holiday. We take federal holidays off. And so, but our team recognized that there was a greater need, and that they took turns. We all took turns being there and accepting stuff. And so I just told them, like, count that as overtime. Like, you guys, like, they step up in ways that we don't even know we need to step up at. So it is a lot of flying by the seat of your pants. However, having seats at tables. We're part of the Lee County Health Council. We're part of the Grade Level Reading Coalition. We're part of emergency management. So we are on all these different committees that are saying like, okay, this is what's happening in our community. Like, how can you respond? How can you be a piece? These are things that may or may not be coming up. And then when things do happen, how can you help? And so in 2 years ago or 3 years ago, we had that huge freeze, and it was like came on instantly. It was like in February, and this freeze came, and so it's like, what are we going to do? We don't have a warming center, we don't have a cooling center, we don't have like a hydration place. What are we going to do? So our person that was a part of 211 at the time, they got with the emergency management system with the county and said like, hey, I have this great idea. Can we open up a warming shelter at the county? And so the county like got into action, and we were part of that. We got some snacks and some waters and some all the things. The county set up partitions and beds and cots, and so it happened overnight that was just put into place. And then we worked with local law enforcement to say, if you see a homeless person on the street, get them and bring them to us out there at the event center. We did realize that we were too far north for something like that, so the VFW the next year said, hey, we want to open up our hall and be part of a warming center next year. And so just things like that, putting them in place. Now that was a fly by the seat of your pants, but then we set it into motion for the next year to know, okay, we need a warming center, like even if it's a temporary one for now. And so we were able to get a grant to help the VFW open up. The emergency management department from the county, they brought in their cots and stuff. We raised waters, food. So and then some of our nonprofits cooked food to have down there at the VFW hall, the kitchen. So it's little things like that. Like first, there's always got to be a learning experience to say like, hey, we're missing this, there's a gap right here. And then we're like, okay, let us help fill that gap with wherever, however we need to. And then from that, let's continue on. And then, hey guys, there's a gap over here. So that's kind of how we roll and work in that. There's some that we know, the reading thing, we do realize like we have such a low grade level reading here, and so it's not going to happen overnight. It's probably going to be an 8 to 10 year slide of working on it, but it takes actively working on it and starting somewhere. Like sometimes you just have to jump off that ledge somewhere and say, okay, let's go. And so we are part of so many different committees, so many different coalitions, that we're able to identify that and say, how can we help, or can we take the lead, whatever we need to do.
So would you say that for Lee County, you actually need to expand your staffing to actually not be spread too thin?
Right.
No.
That would be cool. Yeah.
Because it seems like to me you've got all these different committees.
Yes.
And you're spreading out between 5 people who are actual staff. You have a lot of volunteers, but your volunteers can't be there 24/7.
Correct.
So and your volunteers may not necessarily be clued into everything that you need to do. So would it be a good idea to expand the number of on-staff personnel to actually focus in general areas, such as being able to emergency management, homelessness, food insecurity? Have someone who has more skin in the game.
Oh, yeah. In time, yes. We are working on our next strategic plan. Our strategic plan ends at the end of 2024.
Okay.
So our board and our staff are going to start our new strategic planning, and I foresee that being in the plan of having at least one more staff member. Our 211, well, everybody, we all work so hard, but 211 is the one that he and I, and then there's a part-time assistant in 211, and we all work at attending like a food insecurity, housing insecurity, homelessness. So we all, take our little pieces of it. But yes, to have another full-time staff would be great. So strategically, but that costs money, and that takes money out of our campaign fundraising. So figuring that out, but on the horizon, I foresee us having to do that because we are in so many different things.
Because the thing is that you have people who are working exceptionally well
Yes.
to get things accomplished. But it seems like, it's going to be more and more
It will.
as we proceed onward.
I agree.
Life is what it is, and we're always going to have emergencies.
Oh, yes.
We're always going to have people in need of assistance at some level, and that burden doesn't go away
No.
because it's just simply life. People fall off the hill, so to speak.
Exactly.
So, and it speaks to being effective,
Yes.
being able to actually meet the need that you perceive, and organizations like United Way, at times I think sometimes get bottlenecked because the need exceeds their resources, and they don't know how to actually manage it.
Yeah.
So I guess the question is, which you've already answered pretty much, is how do you be in an effective organization without the support of the community? Because it seems like to me that community involvement, community can't really articulate right now.
It's
The words are escaping me, but the community being a vital part of the answer.
And it is, and that we couldn't do it without the community and our supporters and our funders and our foundations. There's just so many pieces, and to go back to that part of how to be effective, it's to know what our other nonprofits are doing and lean on them. We have a lot of nonprofits that are in the food security. We have a lot that are in the helping kids. We have them in the domestic violence piece of it, and so all of us work so well hand in hand, and we'll reach out. A lot of times we'll reach out to options, and Robert will reach out to us, and so it's that communication, and it's that constant communication, like between our nonprofits and our agencies as well as the community. We stay very active on our social media channels as well as our website. We updated our website because not everybody's on social media, so we make sure that we have that for people that need to find out what's going on, and so we try to identify those areas, and then it's just letting everybody know and staying in the know of like, what is Options doing? How can we help Options? How can Options help us? And so it's having those back and forth pieces of it, because those nonprofits are amazing also. So it's awesome that we have 24 under our umbrella that we can fund, but there's even more that we work hand in hand in that don't even receive United Way funds, but we still help them however we can, and they still help us. And so it's just those relational experiences.
Right. Well, and the first podcast that we did was with a director of Mecca, which helps children. And she was very informative, and it's good to see that interaction between the nonprofits. And one thing that's clear, I think, from all of what you've said, Becca, is that United Way is mostly about giving people a hand up, not a hand out, really, but a hand up, a chance at a better quality of life, which would in turn be good for the community as a whole, because it really, in the final analysis, we are all part of a community, and what one does affects another one. And it's been real informative listening to you, and I've learned more about United Way and some of the other nonprofit groups.
Again, I think we'll hold it there if you don't have any more questions, Pete. All right. Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you for informing us and educating us about the United Way, its role within the community. Thank you for joining us today, and we'll call it a good session.
Thank you
very
for
much.
having me.